Hello, I'm Paul Sheesley, and today we're talking about strategies for improving executive team collaboration. Because a lot of leadership teams look aligned, especially in the room, but they're not actually operating as a team. I'm bringing this up for three reasons. One, because executive collaboration rarely breaks down in obvious ways. It usually shows up as a circular meeting or polite agreements, delayed decisions, mixed messages, and leaders quietly protecting their own function. Because many teams try to solve this as a communication issue when the real issue is coherence. Leaders working from the same reality, the same priorities, and the same understanding of what matters most. Because this gets worse under pressure, especially during growth or restructuring, market strain, leadership transition, post-merger integration. And when ambiguity rises, the trade-offs ultimately get harder, and executives start interpreting the same situation through different fears, incentives, and of course, loyalties. So why me? I'm a psychotherapist and executive coach, founder of EPC Leadership, Executive Performance Coaching. I work with CEOs and senior teams in high-pressure environments where collaboration is not just about chemistry, it's about trust, decision clarity, strategic alignment, and whether the team at the top can operate as a coherent leadership system. I'm coming at this from three different angles. Performance psychology, where pressure does to what pressure does to perception, defensiveness, and executive behavior. Strategic execution, how priorities, decision rights, trade-offs either strengthen or weaken collaboration. And systems leadership, how fragmentation at the top spreads confusion, politics, and inconsistency through the organization. Now, here's the point I want to make. Executive team collaboration is not about getting smart people to get along. It's about whether the people at the top of the organization can think clearly together, disagree productively, make decisions that hold, and send one coherent signal to the rest of the business and teams. Collaboration problems are usually not what they first appear to be. When executive teams say they need better collaboration, what they often mean is something is off. The meetings might feel heavy, people are talking but not really landing anywhere. And so the same conversations keep happening, and the decisions seem agreed on in the room, then come apart in the execution. There's often a presence of tension, but no one is naming it directly. And people look aligned publicly, but privately they're skeptical or frustrated or protecting their lane. And so that's usually where this starts. And one of the first mistakes leaders make is trying to solve that too quickly at the surface. So they say things like, again, we need better communication, we need more transparency, we need to get on the same page. Those phrases are not wrong, they're just often incomplete. There's no follow through. Because what looks like poor collaboration is often something underneath of it. Sometimes it's mistrust, sometimes it's decision ambiguity, sometimes it's unresolved tension about power or fairness or strategic direction. And sometimes it is that people are saying the same words but meaning very different things. So the first strategy for improving executive team collaboration is this. We want to diagnose and break down accurately. So things we want to ask. What exactly is failing here? Is this a trust issue, a clarity issue, an authority issue, an incentive issue, fear, role, timing issues? Because if you misdiagnose the problem, you will build the wrong solution. And that happens all the time. Teams do communicate, or teams, so communication work when the real issue won't work is when the real issue is mistrust. So, for example, they do offsites when the real issue is that nobody knows who has the authority to make the final call, or they talk about teamwork when the real issue is that the executive group has never actually made the hard trade-offs visible enough for alignment to even happen. So before you fix collaboration, you need to name the real fracture. Another way, right? So here's the second. Executive teams collaborate through inner architecture, not just through structure. So this is where I think leadership conversations often stay too shallow, is that every executive walks into a leadership team with an internal operating system. That is true for everyone. They're bringing their relationship to control or to uncertainty, their tolerance for disagreement, their fear of being undermined, their way of responding when pressure rises. And that matters because collaboration is not just a structural issue, it's also a psychological issue. So one leader gets quiet when challenged. Another one is going to over-explain. That one's going to become rigid. And another agrees in the room and resists later. Another is going to start intellectualizing everything because it feels safer than saying they are concerned. This is what I mean by inner architecture. And if you do not understand the inner architecture in the room, you will make the mistake threat response for strategic behavior, essentially. And that's one of the biggest distortions at the executive level. A leader may sound highly convicted, but they may actually be defending against exposure. Another leader may look collaborative, but they may actually be of conflict avoidant. Just the same as a leader may keep asking for more data, but what we really need is emotional certainty and not operational clarity. So one of the strongest strategies for improving executive collaboration is increasing executive self-awareness. There's obvious questions that we could be asking. So what happens in me when my function is challenged? What do I do when I feel left out of a decision? How do I behave when I do not have enough certainty? Where am I becoming rigid? Where do I mistake defensiveness for conviction? And where do I protect my image instead of helping the team think? Because a lot of executives' dysfunction is not a lack of intelligence. It is unexamined threat inside smart people. Clarity decision rights are important. So declaring decision rights before asking for better collaboration is a huge amount of executive team dysfunction, and is actually decision confusion wearing the language of collaboration. In a lot of the organizations I work with, leaders say they want more collaboration, but what they really have is no clean architecture around the authority. And so what happens? Too many people are going to weigh in on the same things they do not own. Decisions will get reopened, meetings go in circles, consensus gets overused, consultations get confused with approval, accountability weakens because everybody's involved, but no one is really responsible or clearly responsible. So this is why improving collaboration requires more than an improving tone. It requires clarifying the decision rights. Especially for important issues, executive teams need to know who owns this, who gives input, who needs to be informed, what's our timeline, and once the decision is made, what is no longer up for debate. That kind of clarity lowers friction fast, because not every important issue requires group consensus. Sometimes the healthiest thing a team can do is to let the right people weigh in and then let the accountable leader decide. That's not less collaboration. It's often more collaboration because it prevents collaboration from turning into a delay. One of the things executive teams have to learn is really this: collaboration is not the same thing as collective ownership of every decision. Healthy collaboration means people understand where shared thinking is needed and where role clarity is needed. So without that, collaboration starts to feel like an endless discussion with no real involvement. One of my other videos talks about trade-offs. We have to make the trade-offs visible. This is one of the strongest concepts that executive teams need to often understand, is that they often say they are aligned around priorities. But when you look more closely, what they are usually aligned around is aspiration. Of course, they all agree on growth matters, culture matters, efficiency matters. They all agree on quality matters. But eventually, those priorities are going to collide. And the moment they collide, collaboration is either going to get sharper or it starts breaking down. Because now different leaders are solving for different outcomes. One's optimizing for speed, another for cost, another for morale or operational stability. We've got one operating in risk management, and maybe one's operating for reputation. And if nobody names the trade-off, the room starts sounding aligned while behaving competitively and different. So this is where executive collaboration quietly falls apart. So one of the most important strategies for improving collaboration is forcing the trade-off conversation. We need to be asking our leaders, what are we really prioritizing here? What are we willing to delay or reduce or disappoint or stop in order to support this? And what matters most right now? Is it speed? Is it scale or precision or relationship preservation? Is it growth or risk reduction? What cost are we asking the organization to absorb at this time? And who is being asked to carry the burden of this decision? Because until something is explicitly deprioritized, nothing is actually prioritized. And teams that cannot make trade-offs visible end up with this symbolic alignment and operational confusion. Building a horizontal alignment and not just vertical reporting is important. A lot of executive teams are not truly collaborating across the enterprise. They are simply updating the CEO. And that's an important distinction because a team can look coordinated while actually being structurally disconnected. So, for example, the CFO is solving one reality, the CEO is solving for another, HR is solving for another, commercial is solving for another, technology is solving for another. Everyone is competent and everyone is committed, but they're not truly operating laterally. And that's going to create a fragmented leadership. And when that happens, the organization starts getting these mixed signals from the top. People are going to hear one set of priorities from finance, another from operations, another from HR, another from the commercial. So everyone sounds smart, everyone sounds reasonable, but the business does not know which signal to operate or to trust. So if collaboration is going to improve, the executive team has to work horizontally and not just vertically. That means leaders have to ask, how does my function create friction for yours? Where are our priorities colliding? Where are we not coordinating early enough? What decisions have downstream implications that we are not thinking about? And what message is the organization receiving because we are not aligned across functions? That is a major maturity marker because executive leaders do not just lead departments, they co-author the enterprise reality. We also want to be able to normalize productive disagreement without personalizing it. A team that cannot tolerate tension cannot collaborate at a high level. That is simply true. Because executive collaboration does not require the absence of disagreement. It requires the ability to stay inside disagreement without fragmenting. And many leaders struggle here. So teams avoid tension completely. They'll stay polite. They'll over-soften. They avoid truths. And the concerns are unspoken. Everything's going to look calm, but the real disagreement goes underground. Other teams do the opposite. The tension comes out, but it comes out in a way that feels personal, political, sharp, or destabilizing, and the room is now reactive instead of being thoughtful. So neither pattern produces strong collaboration. Adaptive leadership requires the capacity to hold productive disequilibrium with psychological containment. In simple terms, can this team stay uncomfortable long enough to think clearly without the room becoming unsafe? That means leaders need to learn how to challenge ideas without attacking people, disagree without becoming adversarial. They need to be able to stay engaged when discomfort goes up and separate strategic friction from an ego threat and tolerate not being immediately agreed with. And that is real executive work. So one question I like is, what kind of tension helps us think better? And what kind of tension pulls us off course? Because useful disagreement is necessary. Uncontained reactivity is not. Many executive teams are strong at presentation, at least I've found, and weak at integration. They know how to give updates. They know how to explain their function. They know how to present well. They know how to sound strategic, but collaboration is not measured by polished updates. It is measured by whether the enterprise is actually becoming more coherent because of what's happening in the room. This is where many executive meetings drift into stagecraft. People are presenting, people comment, people nod, and then the organization goes right back to fragmentation because no real integrative work has occurred. So if you want better executive collaboration, the executive meeting has to shift from a presentation space to a working space. Much less of, here's what my department is doing. More of, where my priorities are collaborating, what is getting distorted in execution, what assumptions are different across the team, where are we seeing inconsistent signals into the business, and what are we avoiding because it's uncomfortable? Because the executive meeting should not just be the platform for reporting, it should be the place where enterprise coherence is built. And if that's not happening, then the team is informing each other and not truly collaborating. So a lot of executive teams think they're collaborated well because the meeting felt thoughtful. We feel good. But collaboration is not proven by the conversations felt. It's proven by what holds after the room. So every executive conversation needs translation before you leave. What's decided, what's unresolved, who owns what are the trade-offs, what needs to be communicated, who is communicating it, And what follow through will show whether the decision is holding. And if those things are not clear, the collaboration was incomplete. And this is one of the most common executive problems, that everyone leaves with a slightly different understanding of what happened. Like I said, people execute from different interpretations. Now messages are drifting, teams downstream or will fill in the gaps, trust starts to erode because people feel like leadership is not actually aligned. So improving collaboration means strengthening the handoff from discussion to execution. Otherwise, the executive team is going to become a place where intelligent people talk well without producing coordination. People often say executive teams need more trust, and they do. But trust at the executive level is not built only through vulnerability or openness, it's built through coherence. You're going to see growth improve when leaders say the same thing in the room and outside of it. That's signal. Decisions match the stated priorities. Responsibilities are clear. Conflict can happen without punishment, and leaders do what they say they're going to do. And information is not managed politically. So this is what makes a team feel trustworthy, because nothing erodes executive collaboration than contradiction. So if leaders say they want candor but punish challenge, trust is going to drop. And if they say they want alignment but protect their own functions first, trust is going to drop. The same as if they say strategy is clear but keep changing the standard, or if leaders say collaboration matters but important decisions are still being handled inconsistently. So if an executive team wants more trust, it has to reduce contradiction. And that is why trust is not just emotional, it is operational. So when we talk about strategies for improving executive team collaboration, we have to go beyond generic leadership language. This is not just about communication. It's not just about teamwork, and it's not just about getting senior people to get along. Executive collaboration improves when leaders understand the inner architecture they bring into the room, align around real priorities, clarify decision rights, and make trade-offs visible, and tolerate productive tension, and translate those conversations into coordinated actions. This is what real collaboration requires, because the executive team is not just a group of senior people. It is the organization's central meaning-making system. And when that system is fragmented, the whole business feels it. The signal gets blurry, decisions slow down, politics increase, mixed messages will spread, and people spend more time interpreting leadership than following it. But when the executive collaboration is strong, the opposite is going to happen. That signal is going to get stronger, and priorities are going to get clearer, and the tension gets more useful. And the organization starts to feel that leadership is not just talking better, it is actually operating better. That's the goal. Thanks for listening.